was a really special piece that I made. The Infinite Angel, and the reason it's special is because this is the story of my father. And I don't know if anybody's had a parent, a relative, an aunt, an uncle, cousin, brother, sister who's had Alzheimer's, but my father the last 2 years had Alzheimer's, and I would go see him and say, I'll be back in a couple of minutes, I have to go to the restroom, and I'd walk back in and he would say, how come you haven't been to see me? So a little piece at a time, he left. And after a while, he didn't know us at all, he just shook his sheet all day long. He would eat a banana, because you would tell him to, but he wouldn't know who you were. So he had a bad infection, and they gave him different types of Cipro and things like that, and they said, well, it's not helping the staph infection, so we had to make the decision to stop forcing the fluids, and he wouldn't want to continue on like this. So they said, well, hospice came in. Said when he stops getting the forced fluids, he'll have about 7 to 8 days. Well, the following Saturday, Friday actually, he died on the Saturday. But on Friday, he woke up for half an hour. And Linda's sitting there, my wife, and she's holding my father's hand. And he wakes up and says, well, hey, Linda, how you doing? And she says, well, I'm doing fine. How are you, Hobart? And he goes, oh, no complaints. I said, I want to ask you to do a favor for me that I taught my son not to do. I want to ask you to make a promise to a dying man. And she said, anything. And he said, I've always loved you like my own daughter, so I know that you'll do this. He said, if you're going to love my son, love him with all your heart and all of mine, because I won't be here. Can you do that for me? She said, yeah. And he said, make sure he goes and sees those grandkids. I know how he is. He'll work all the time, and they'll grow up before you know it. So make sure you take him, and you all go see those grandkids a couple, 2 or 3 times a year, or he'll miss it all. She said, okay. And he said, and if he's on the road teaching or doing personal appearances, make sure that on Sunday he's in church somewhere. Can you do that for me? And she said, yeah. So he asked to speak to me. He sat down, I sat down, and he told me, as the oldest son, what he wanted me to do when the time was right. I told him, don't worry, everything you've asked me to do, I will see to it that it's done by your instructions. And he was always a prankster, my dad was, and so he said, well, where's Mom at? My mother. I said, well, she was here at 10 o'clock last night, she's at home. He said, well, call her up on your phone and let me talk to her. So I called and handed the phone to my dad, and he's like, hello, my mom says. And he says, well, hey, Betty, how you doing? And she goes, Hobart, is that you? And my father jokingly said, well, who else would be calling you? Because that's the way he was. She's like, oh, I'm so excited. So she came immediately. And I got up, and Mom sat down and grabbed my dad's hand. And she said, Hobart, do you know who I am? And my father said, well, you're Betty Lou. I've loved you since I was 12 years old. I'll never forget you, darling. Well, that was the last words that my dad spoke. And he lived up in the mountains of Harlan, Kentucky, and they lived at the top of the mountain, and she lived halfway up the mountain. So he was her grade school boyfriend through high school, and they got married after he came back from Korea. So I took Mom home. It was raining ice, and so this is 4 o'clock, around 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. I took her home. I took Linda home. And the ice is getting pretty bad, so it took an hour and a half to get from Corden to Jeffersonville, about a half an hour. And on the way, I told Linda, I said, wasn't this a miracle that he got to know me and say, I'm proud of you? one more time. And you find yourself, when you see something like this, wanting one more. You just wish, gee whiz, I wish I had one more. I wish I had one more. And you knew that if you got another one, it wouldn't be enough. It would never be enough. But you still wish that you had another one. So I took her home, and it's a hard one. I said, I have to go back. He can't die alone. I'm the oldest son. It's my responsibility. So, 11 o'clock the next day, it was like somebody poured ice water down my back. And I told Dad, I said, it's time for you to go home, brother. Grandma's come to escort you home. But before you go, I'm going to tell you a couple things you taught me. I'm going to play your favorite Hank Williams song. And I'll do some bird calls one more time. So I told him the three best things that he taught me. And I played I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry by Hank Williams. And he loved birds. He loved getting up early and listening to the birds sing. So I did Bob White, and now he hasn't moved at all. He hasn't moved and all night and the previous day after 4 o'clock. And he was turning black, sinking in, turning colors. And I did Bob White, and I'm holding on to his hand, and he squeezes my hand twice. And I think, well, this is just involuntary reaction because he can't move. He hasn't moved any. And I did one tweet, and he squeezed my hand one time. And I said, Dad, if you know it's me, and you know that I love you, then you're not alone. Squeeze my hand 3 times. And he went 1, 2, and then we were like shaking hands. And he squeezed my hand as hard as he could, just like a man. And it was gone. So I called my wife. Said, I got my one more. So for everybody who's gone through losing a parent a little piece at a time, part of the proceeds for this goes to benefit Alzheimer's research. So thank you very much. This one's for you.